from whether it's mechanical, physiological, like mental, all this, like you just have to be prepared to be on it all day and be able to overcome whatever the course throws at you, or you end up by yourself for 4 hours.
Welcome to the Alt Route Cycling Podcast, dedicated to covering the exciting and challenging off-road and alternate events that is growing enormously in popularity. Join us as we delve into the alternate cycling calendar of gravel racing, mountain bike racing, ultra endurance, and other mixed cycling events. I'm your host, Nick Licandro, and this podcast is brought to you by Travello Coaching, a coaching service to help you train smarter and race faster, including for any of your alternate cycling events. I hope you enjoy this episode and keep joining us as we explore the roads less traveled. In today's episode, Trekky and I are joined by American mountain biker turned gravel pro Ryan Standish. Ryan has a unique story, moving from America to Alice Springs when he was just 2 years old. We talk about how Alice Springs shaped his love for cycling, his progression as an elite mountain biker in Australia, his move back to the States, and his more recent gravel focus. We debrief round 1 of the Lifetime series at Sea Otter and talk all things round 2 at Unbound. I hope you enjoy today's episode with Ryan Standish. Welcome to episode 3 of the Alt Route podcast. We're lucky enough to have Trekky Johnson joining us again as co-host. Nice title for you, Trekky. And also gravel pro Ryan Standish. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I still prefer mountain bike pro, but I guess that's where we're going.
We can call you a dual pro, I think.
Dual pro.
I like pro off-roader.
Pro off-road, yeah.
I can't really say privateer either because that's more gravel. So we'll just stick with dual pro.
I feel like mountain bikers were always privateers.
That's also true
as well.
Yeah.
But it's I'm going to hit you with a bit of a loaded question up front. So I hope you don't mind. Would you consider yourself an American or an Aussie?
That's absolutely loaded. Officially, I have a US passport, so I guess I'm American. But
do you have an Australian passport?
I did grow up in Alice Springs, so don't have an Australian passport. So yeah, because I wasn't born there, so I guess that makes the easy answer. But was born in the US, grew up in Alice Springs, and then finished high school and came back.
I feel like you brushed over it pretty quick. It's a pretty cool story. You moved over here when you were 2. I think you were 2 because your parents got a job in Alice, and like it's obviously a pretty remote place. Like I feel like if you're going to move from overseas, it's maybe like Melbourne or Sydney,
or Canberra or something.
So I guess like how did that happen? Why Alice? And then I know that Alice was like kind of pretty big inspiration to getting into mountain biking as well. So maybe talking us through that as well. Yeah.
So my parents worked for a US company that had a kind of post in Alice, and they moved out, like you said, when I was 2. And then, spent my whole childhood out there, and my parents they're still in Alice. So they really like the small remote town, I guess, vibe energy out there, and eventually grew up playing soccer and tennis, and never really got into the Aussie sports. Never did any. I think I played 1 year of cricket and 1 year of footy, but never caught on with that, and then found out there's like a pretty good cycling community in Alice Springs. They got a velodrome and little road race series, and they had a small mountain bike club back then as well, and ended up getting into that and finding out both my parents used to ride bikes. They never raced, but did like, I think charity rides when they were younger and did bike packing. I guess we call it bike packing now. It used to be touring trips like that. And so kind of got into it with Dad and then found the local shop who was excited to have, I guess, a young guy riding bikes, and slowly got into it and found racing and did the whole national series, which sounds like that's not really much of a thing anymore over there. The mountain bike national series.
It's not what it was when we went in that time you're talking about. I think it's kind of happening again a bit, but
yeah, I think that was probably late, like it was like 2007-ish to 2011, I think. And I think I might be a couple years younger than you, Trekky. I don't think we ever really raced against each other.
How old are you?
I think I was 29.
Yeah, I'm 31.
Yeah, so like when I was racing over there, I was junior, so you're always you were always 2 years ahead. So
lucky me.
Lucky you.
Well, I did actually notice going through the Otway results that I think you won in 2017 and Trekky won in 2018. Or like you're 1 year apart winners, which I thought was pretty cool. But I don't think you raced the year after when Trekky won, and I don't think Trekky was in your year too. So maybe we have to organise another Otway Odyssey showdown.
Yeah, that'd be good. We'll have to talk to Sam and John if they're still putting it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think we'll get a few showdowns this year anyway.
Yeah, we had one.
We had one.
Maybe we'll get to that later. We got to spend some time at Sea Otter together. Yeah. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. I guess that you spent so much time in Australia. I know you obviously came over when you were 2, but now you're back there and racing the scene. Like, are you still have a little bit of a connection with Australia? Do you get back often?
Not since I haven't been back since before COVID. So I usually tried to go every year, kind of in the off season, and then I guess 2017 was the last time was it 2017 or 2018? I don't remember. I kind of did Otway and then what was the other race? I think Marathon Nationals, one of the years. Trekky won that a bunch of times, but came back to the States, I think in 2018, and have been pretty much here since then, and wanted to go back this year to do some early season training in the heat in Alice Springs, but it's got really expensive to to fly to Australia, so I was like, have to maybe go go at the end of the year this year.
Well, it's no cheaper to fly.
It has been a while now. No, exactly. Both ways are bad.
Yeah. So talk us a bit about your progression from getting into mountain biking when you were a kid, and then kind of, I guess, when you started to take it a bit more seriously. I know you've mentioned you had some pretty good riders in Alice, and that probably helped your progression as well. But when you started to take it a bit more seriously, and then I guess what your aims were as a kid with mountain biking.
I think at first it was just for fun. It was a way to go out and, I guess, Trekky's ridden the trails in Alice. It's different to anywhere else that I've really ridden. It's like I never thought it was sandy, but then when I go home, I'm like, man, it's pretty sandy out here. But I think then it was kind of this, I guess, discovery that there were other people who raced mountain bikes, and that it was, I think I remember watching the Com Games were in Melbourne, maybe early 2000s, and seeing Aussies being competitive. Maybe John Gorwood won that year. I don't remember, but John Gorwood either grew up or spent time in Alice Springs as well, and kind of was a well-known name there. And I was like, oh, there's like, this is an Olympic sport, and there's people who do this as a profession, and went from wanting to be like David Beckham to wanting to be like Julian Absalom.
Bend it like Beckham.
Like this, yeah, exactly, in that era. And so, yeah, there was a guy locally who was doing some coaching and had raced professionally when he was younger, John Piper, and he kind of took me on board and was like, yeah, you should make your goal like go race World Cups, and be like not just racing around to be another person on the results sheet, but actually be up there at World Cup races. And got way more into it, and ended up actually doing a bit of road racing as a junior as well.
Gee, to me that sounds like a long way from Alice Springs.
Everything was long. You had to travel anywhere.
But I mean,
anywhere
like
to do any racing. But
the World Cup, you know, it
World Cup's a long way from. Yeah,
it must have felt like a long way from where you were.
Yeah, definitely. But I think like we had maybe you raced against David or Daniel Johnston.
Yeah.
Funny, similar last name. Yeah, they were from Alice Springs as well, and they had gone to world champs. I think both of them had, and they were a couple of years older than I was, and I was like, kid from Alice Springs can go race World Cups and do world champs.
You know what? Funny story. I think it was David. We traveled overseas somewhere, and it was like a national team, I think, and he was on the team, and he was traveling from Alice, and we got to like the flight out of Sydney or wherever it was, and he got pulled up with oversized because he was traveling with a rock, like a rock from, I don't know why he had it, but it was like, I was like, here's a guy from Alice Springs, he's bought his rock, and you're not going to be able to travel with that. Did you travel with a rock, Ryan, or?
I never had a rock. I think I might have actually traveled one of the national series races. The award was this like plastic cog chainring thing in a piece of granite. Yeah, it was like this massive brick of granite. Yeah. So I think I might have flown with a rock once, but not as a talisman kind of thing that I needed to travel with after that. So I think there was good kind of solid athletes to look up to. It was like every 3 years there was like another kid from Alice Springs who was.
There was a bit of a program out there, like
we had. We did have a little bit of support from the NTIS. Yeah, that there was. I think it was David and me that were the mountain bikers, at least. So that I think we had a bit of support from NTIS and some coaching, and there were some riders from Darwin who were a little younger than I was, and their dad was super into it, and kind of helped build a bit of a foundation for mountain bikers and cyclists in the NT trying to get out of there, to get to races and to have some support traveling. And then I guess progressing beyond that, like eventually ended up, since I wasn't a Aussie citizen, I was still racing the national series and doing nationals, but won. I think I won both my years of under 19 and couldn't put on the jersey because I wasn't officially wasn't Australian, and then kind of looked into, was able to go and do a camp in Europe with USA Cycling, and never really, I guess since their season's the opposite part of the year, never really had any results on like in the US as a junior, and then kind of after high school decided I was done racing and took a gap year and went and was a assistant teacher in Bogota in Colombia for 6 months, and thought, oh, maybe I'll go to the US and see, like, there's some good colleges that have good support for, they had cycling teams at the college that you compete against other colleges and universities, and kind of took it from there and went to the States and was like, yeah, this will be good, and worked out and had some decent results, but never where I thought I should be. And was like, oh, I'll go. Graduated from college and went back to Australia and lived in Bendigo for a couple of years and met like Taz and Chris Hamo and Lounsey as well. Yeah, really enjoyed being in Bendigo, and thought maybe the opportunities in the US to race professionally, there's a lot more opportunity to do that over here. So came back and kind of figured it out, and then now a few years later we're into the Lifetime Grand Prix, and gravel and everything has kind of blown up over here and become a real opportunity to do it as a profession without having to go to Europe and spend half a year in Europe speaking, or having to learn new languages and that kind of stuff. So there's my life story.
You get around.
I actually noticed, I was going through, I think some of like your Instagram photos, and saw that you did a graft into Inverell.
Yeah, I did one graft into Inverell.
So like you obviously, how much road did you do?
That was, I think that was when I came back after college, and did a couple races that season. I don't think I did any. I did about one year of racing doing the NRS stuff.
That was with AMR, Renault?
With AMR, yeah. Maybe it was 2 years, because I think I did two tours of Tasmania, and then what was the one in Victoria?
King Valley.
King Valley. Tour of the King Valley, yeah. Did a King Valley, did Grafton.
Bit of gravel in the King
and then
Valley.
When I was a junior, I did, just a little bit, couple Ks. And then, when I was young, I did the Bay Crits. I think 2 years, did the Bay Crits twice when I was a junior in not the pro race, the other support one. Mm-hmm. So did a fair bit of, decent amount of road racing. I did a bit in college as well, and got, I think best result there was third in the Nationals crit as well. So I guess crit racing was always good for the XCO. The XCO background was good for doing the shorter races, and now trying to figure out the transition into, I guess, Unbound coming up with 10 hours plus event, which is new. So I guess you've always been like a massive mountain bike guy. Like that's basically been your thing. I know you said you've done a little bit of road, but talk to me about the transition into gravel, because I know that you're in the Lifetime this year, and kind of almost when you started to notice gravel growing in America as well. We've spoken about in Australia, we've got it, but it's nowhere near like it is in the States. So when did you kind of notice gravel kind of being a thing in America, and then that being something that you wanted to try as well? I think, trying to think when I realized, or when I saw like it starting to get more popular, and it was probably around the time I came back, like 2017, 2018, when some of the ex-World Tour roadies were coming back and like kind of retiring from the road and starting to do, I think back then it was Dirty Kansas, which is now Unbound. It was like Ted King and even Payson McElveen, who we went to the same college and kind of knew him from racing mountain bikes when we were juniors. And he started to kind of make that transition onto the gravel scene And these races, like, I think Unbound's been going on for, I want to say 15 odd years. Like it's a lot older than a lot of people think. And I think there's a lot of other gravel events that have always been kind of local grassroots events that became, once more world tour guys start showing up and more like bigger name mountain bike guys started showing up, and that's when it really started to grow. And I think as well, COVID, I think, was also a, what do you call it? A booster for those events, because more people were getting out on bikes and getting bikes that wanted to go and explore roads that were less busy than, like, once you get outside of the city, you can go on the dirt roads and they're usually pretty quiet and not many cars on the road. So I think that also contributed to it, as well as maybe the bike industry seeing that they can create a whole new segment to sell bikes.
Yeah.
So then the money goes into it, and then all of a sudden it's a huge thing. And now, like, I think Unbound has, there's gravel events that have 2,000-3,000 participants plus, like even more. And so I think the ability of to have these mass start events where you have all 2,000 people on the start line at the same time, and you can compare your time to the winner's time, or see them before and after the event, and it's not as, or they can relate to the amateur side can relate to the professional side, because they all rode the same course. You have your start and finish time, whereas on, like, in a mountain bike race, often, at least over here, there's like the pro course that has more technical features and not always the same course. So it's harder for you to relate to what they're doing. And a lot of the time, like, I know the World Cup in snowshoe for the mountain bike race, there's people who are like, man, we ride our enduro bikes on those trails, and you guys are riding them on your little cross country bikes and cross country tires. And so it's harder to, I guess, for those little segments of trail, they can be like, man, how do you ride that without 160 mil travel? But then on gravel, it's like everybody's got the same, or more or less the same equipment, and doing the same course and doing the same distance. And I think it makes it more relatable to anybody who's out there riding. So I think that all of those kind of factors from the industry side to the consumer side has made it grow. And I don't know what that would look like in another country where it's not so, maybe not as consumer driven and capitalistic as the US. But
also, I think the other thing I want to really deep dive into, you making this transition across to gravel, is the training for it. Like, I think I've mentioned you doing, like, basically 20-minute mountain bike races, and then, like, the hour and a half, 2 hour races, with a few marathons in there that you might have done. But now progressing to something like Gravel Locos, which is going to be like 6-7 hours, Unbound's 11 hours. Like, do you have a coach, and how has your training changed from a few years ago when you were so mountain bike focused to now gravel? Yeah,
it's been huge. I think the change from, like, mountain bike training and working, I do work with a coach as well, but training from, or making the transition from XCO racing, which is super high repeatability VO2, like, how many times can you do 600 watts for a minute, 4 times a lap, 5 times a lap for an hour and a half, versus the Unbound or Gravel Locos. Like, can you ride 300 watts normalized for 7 hours or 10 hours or however long it is, and can you surge and still be able to ride like 300 watts is your endurance pace and still be able to get to the finish line. And this is actually the first year that I'm doing no cross-country racing. So last year and the year before as well was trying to kind of balance doing the hour-and-a-half XCO race and then a month or two later doing Unbound, the 10, 11-hour race. And I think this year's been a lot more focused on that steady endurance and tempo and threshold, like kind of aerobic energy systems to build that fitness so you can just pedal pretty hard for 10 hours.
Would you say like that cross-country style of racing is what you're best at, or would you say you're trying to kind of change yourself as an athlete to do the longer races, or would you say you that's just what you grew up doing, so that's the kind of what would you say is your kind of physiology suited to? Is it really long, or is it the shorter stuff?
Man, I think the shorter stuff more physiologically suited to the shorter, punchier stuff. Whether that's from, nature or nurture, I don't know. But having grown up, like Alice Springs had a velodrome, so I raced on the track every Friday night, and that's all super short, high intensity stuff. And then getting into the mountain bike, and never really doing much riding over 3 or 4 hours was kind of like the longest ride I did until, I don't know, 4 years ago. So that's definitely kind of a goal, or been progression in the past couple of years, is to try and build that aerobic endurance as well, where you can change your physiology enough to become, or to be able to ride like that tempo zone is like you've spent 10, 15 years being good at VO2 and sprinting, and now you're trying to say, okay, now we need to ride. Like,
you got to compete against guys from coming from the world tour, who have been doing that their whole life. So that's what's so intriguing about this series. What I find intriguing about it anyway is the different groups of people that you're seeing coming in and competing together, and it's like, some of the races will really suit the mountain bikers, and then other races will suit these like Unbound, suit these road guys. So what you're seeing is like different athletes trying to work on the area of that they're not good at. So it's pretty interesting, I feel like.
And then you have the guys like Keegan, who also grew up racing cross country. That was like what he did, but physiologically he's kind of made for these super long races, and especially races like Leadville, where it's at altitude and super climbing focused races. But seeing him kind of grow to be able to be competitive, super competitive at Unbound, which is, if on paper, is not really a race that should suit a guy who weighs 50, 60 kilos and is you would look at him as a pure climber, but on a kind of punchy rolling course, he can still be competitive. So I think it's definitely cool to see guys who came from a cross-country mountain bike background to be competitive with guys who come from a world tour background as well. And having guys like Nicky Terpstra. Yeah.
I see Keegan as a exception to that rule, I feel, because no slouch in he's an outlier. He's skewing the average. But he was no slouch in the cross country, for sure. And yeah, he's been able to make that transition and just kind of skip all the it feels like skip all that the kind of middle ground of transitioning and being so strong over the long races. But yeah, for everyone else, I feel like we're all having to kind of change our or broaden our kind of ability.
Yeah, I mean, didn't you win Melbourne to Warney one year?
I did. Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah.
You did. Yeah. So that's a long race.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I was never that good in the XCO type of, I did it because I thought it was fun and it was what everyone was doing. But yeah, for me, I'm probably a bit different. Like, I think I do have the longer type of engine, and it's been not so hard for me to kind of get into the longer races, and I've always enjoyed that. Yeah, going deep into the day and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's different again for me. And but yeah, going up against like guys like yourself and Keegan and Finsty and that in these shorter races, like especially like the Schwalmingen one, I think like that for me that's kind of intimidating as well. So
yeah, and it's cool what Lifetime's kind of done with they are still, all of them are still longer than an XCO race, but to have a race that's 2 hours and a race that's 10 or 11 hours, you really have completely different fitness and needs for training between those different events. I still think it'd be good for them to add a real mountain bike race with some real single track or some more technical single track, I think, to really make it a true dual, I guess, off-road series, to have a race that's technically challenging. And like Sea Otter's, I think, the most technical of the series at the moment, and there's not a whole lot there that separates the people who are good technically versus the people who are definitely more from the world tour fitness background as well. So
I was surprised actually at Sea Otter. Well, even in the BWR I did the week before, there is quite a difference in ability, like technically for sure. And I think
yeah, definitely. And even in our little group.
Yeah. I think what if it was more technical, that there would be some people really struggling, and Sea Otter was not.
Might be bad.
Was not hard at all, in terms of the trails. But yeah, it is interesting to see that spread of ability, and it's unique, I think, because typically you wouldn't be considering these road guys as a threat in the race at something like Sea Otter if it was just a Sea Otter race. But because it's part of this series, and now they're all in there, and it's like, well, actually I'm racing him. So I don't know, it's just a very interesting, you know what I mean? Like, and they probably wouldn't even do the race if it wasn't part of the series. So it's funny.
Yeah, I think looking at, like, you look around you, whatever, if you're in a group or if you see someone ahead of you or behind you, and you kind of know, like, there's 35 men, 35 women in the series, and you kind of know, you have a rough idea of what they look like, what kit they're in. If you look ahead and you're like, okay, that guy isn't in the series, you're not as motivated to kind of chase him down, as if, like, you look behind you and you see someone that you know is in the series, and you're like, okay, all these points or the result really could make a difference at the end of the year. So it's kind of interesting looking at these races that have the pro field that's not all people in the series. You've got people who are doing that individual event who aren't part of the series, and I think that's an interesting dynamic to have. It's not like Formula One or MotoGP where it's like the same people every week. You know where you stand between them, and you can use that to your advantage or disadvantage for each individual race. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another interesting dynamic to already what is a like pretty outrageous series. Like when you think about it, let's debrief a little bit more on Sea Otter, because Trekky, I think you finished 8th and 5th in lifetime, and Ryan, you were 15th and 12th in lifetime. So what were your goals for Sea Otter? How did your day pan out, and were you happy with the result?
I had a good ride. I was happy with it. I think going into the event, I was like, man, I know I was in pretty good shape and had ridden with a lot of those guys at races, some gravel racing earlier in the year, and kind of like had set my goal. Like I wanted to be in the top 5, but top 10 would be stoked on that as well. And then to end up, like I had a good start, but got stuck behind, I'm not going to name names, but behind a couple roadies in the first descent. And that was
where were you in that
our
first
little
descent?
group. I got stuck behind another roadie that was behind the group that you were in, behind the second roadie.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
But
it was frustrating.
Yeah. It was frustrating because you start on this super wide Laguna Seca, like the raceway on this wide pavement, and you've got guys who can get to the single track potentially before you can, and then you lose. I think we were probably almost a minute down by the end of that first single track descent. And yeah, so that was frustrating as well. And I was able to get it up into that group with Trekky and who's it, Connie Loser and I guess
McTubbin.
McTubbin was in there. Tobin. I think there was 4 or 5 of us early.
There was someone else
after that first single track.
Jasper.
There was Jasper Ockelon, and then Braden Lang. We were just behind Braden, who was kind of riding by himself, and then he crashed in that mud.
Yeah.
The one mud section.
Yeah.
But then, we worked really well together and held the gap to I think there was a group of 7 or 8 in the lead that stayed together most of the day, and we could see them up there. It was like between 45 seconds and a minute 10 every time we could see them, and we'd each like kind of time it. And so that was good. And then I ended up, on the second lap, should have got 2 bottles and only got 1. Looking back on it, I ran out of water pretty early for when I should have run out of water. Kind of where Trekky and Connie kind of gapped me off. I was like, I'm trying to save my water and make it to the finish. And then spent the whole last 15K, 15 or 20K kind of on my own, and was like, you're dehydrated, but the sooner you get to the finish, the sooner you're going to get to have a drink. And ended up getting caught by, there was a group of, I think 5 guys that was behind our group, and they caught me, and I was like, okay, hop on this group, motor into the finish, and still just kept going backwards. So, it was, I think, wanted more, but I'm still happy with that result, and to know that the fitness is there. I just needed to do a little better planning and not expect just because the weather forecast says something that it's not going to be a tailwind up the climb and you're just going to bake in the sun. So he's coming and going.
Yeah, I mean, it was a funny day. I felt like I was battling this back problem, so the start, and also the guys were so warmed up, like Keegan and that were just on the rollers. I don't know if you had rollers, but I probably should have been more organized.
Yeah, I warmed up. Not at the I wasn't warming up at the start line on rollers, but I did have a set over at the tent that I warmed up on.
So yeah, it was a bad start for me, and then it was kind of just what I didn't want for the day to be, because if you're in that front group, it's such a, I mean, obviously they're going hard, but it's such a different race to when you're just like where we were, when pretty much you need to be on the gas like the next 4 hours. Like that was the race I didn't want for me that day.
Yep, me too.
I was like, if you're in the front, you know, they naturally there's points where there's lulls and there's sitting up. So it was a shame that, I guess for both of us that we messed up the start and
just missed that one wheel that we needed to be ahead
literally.
Of. But I think I did more work than I really should have on the first lap as well. Was kind of a little panicked and was like, man, I belong in that front group. Yeah. We got to get back. And it was kind of like our group was worked okay together, but it was still a little bit negative with some surging. I was like, man, if we just ride steady, I think we could get back. And then I got frustrated and was like, okay, I'm just going to sit on the front and ride the pace that I want to ride. And then come around and surge and then sit up. And then I was, just got a little frustrated. So I think that's like,
I feel like I knew that was going to be a good day. It wasn't going to be a good, race for me, just in how I was feeling. And I pretty early resigned myself to being just a chase day and not really getting back to that front. Like I guess you probably noticed I was like not really so motivated to get there, just knowing that how long like I knew it was going to be the long race. It was hot. It wasn't so hot, but it felt hot. And it's a grippy course. Like towards the finish there, it's like quite climby and quite slow, and it's fast average. But I mean,
you
the
just
course
save
is not
something
easy
for that. Yeah. So there's a lot of climbing for how kind of flat it feels and how fast the pace is. There is a lot of climbing for the distance of the course. So I think it was good to kind of get a gauge of where I'm at and where everyone else was at. But it is between Sea Otter and Unbound is a long time. I think it's 7 weeks between those two. So they're completely different races as well. So I think there's a lot of speculation, I guess, of what like guys who were riding well at Unbound and had good results versus good results at Sea Otter versus how Unbound's going to unfold as well.
Yeah, with Unbound coming up, and that's a really good point you mentioned, like managing your form, like there is a big gap in between. So we've spoken to Trekky about this. How are you managing the season, and are you just picking a couple of races where you want to do really well, or are you just trying to maintain a pretty decent level across the whole series? Like, how are you approaching it?
Yeah, kind of different, or I guess combination of both of those. Like Unbound's kind of the one that I have unfinished business at and haven't been, like the past two, did my first one 2 years ago and last year, and then this will be my third one and haven't been in the top 20. So I'm kind of like, I know I can be there and put more emphasis on being good for that long steady racing, and having, I think this season's interesting, having taken out the XCO, like all the short racing is not there anymore. So I think like the Whiskey 50, which was 2 weeks or last weekend, at a bit over 3 hours, I think 3 hours 20 is my shortest race of the year. So now it's kind of all shifted to the longer events, as well as adding, it's like combining the long gravel stuff with fun mountain bike events that kind of keep me excited about racing. Not that the gravel stuff's not exciting, but the mountain bike's definitely still where my passion is as well, and definitely have more fun doing that. So kind of combining the season with these fun mountain bike races, as well as the ones that are more focused on the result at those. But yeah, physiologically and training wise is definitely focused around the 7 races of the Lifetime Grand Prix, and then sprinkling in, I think all the other races are all mountain bike events. So I'll be doing BC bike race up in Canada in July, which is like a 7-day mountain bike race that has been on my bucket list for a long time. So getting to go do that is more of a fun opportunity to mix it up and still get some good quality racing in, but not being worried about results and overall position and that kind of thing. So yeah, mix of staying fit through and being competitive through the whole season. I think Unbound's probably the biggest focus for being in shape for and prepared for. And then after that, it's like, as long as you make it through Unbound and recover from that, then you can get through the rest of the season.
I want to just touch on, and something that strikes me about you is balance. Like, you want to do well in races, but you also want to have fun and enjoy your cycling. A lot of people in your situation are pretty much, or can be very heavily results focused. So how are you finding that balance? Because for me, it just makes the whole experience a whole lot more enjoyable when you seem to be able to find the middle point, which it seems like you have.
I think that's the goal. That's been, I guess, being a privateer in the, I guess, mountain bike and now into gravel scene, having the opportunity to build relationships with sponsors who see that fun side and the interaction with people at events that they're not necessarily racing against, like I'm not racing against them, they're racing against their 2 mates that they have been training all year to beat their mate from the same town or city as them. And they're still going to go out and drink a beer after the race, or maybe the night before, go out and have a big night and see who can race the best when they're hungover. And I think that's easy for me to relate to the guys who aren't doing it professionally. And then I think that combined with the brands seeing that as well, with you can race professionally and still have fun doing it.
Is there a party at Unbound or?
Ooh, not really. No party. There's not. Most people after riding a bike for between 10 and 25 hours are pretty cracked. There is a beer garden, but I think most people are nursing saddle sores and dehydration. So
all right, we'll make our own. Make our own.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with something. I think there's still all the people who are there for support, and then the vendors in the expo. There's a party atmosphere, but there's not necessarily an after party for Unbound, because I guess the after party is hanging out and seeing people still coming into the finish at 2 a.m. So if you can stay awake till 2 a.m. after you rode your bike from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., then there's a party. But Emporia is not a very big town. There's not a whole lot happening there.
One Melbourne to Warrnambool, we took the train, did the race, took the train back to Melbourne, and then stayed out all night, which is like it's a 7 a.m. race or early race start, so you're up very early, and then race for, I think the race takes 7 hours, and then we got on the train and then back to Melbourne, and then so yeah,
Back to Melbourne.
it's doable.
Okay, so it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Okay, yeah, we'll have to see what we can line up.
Let's talk expectations for Unbound. You mentioned you really want a top 20. Is that the goal for this year? And what do you think is most important heading into the race in order to do well?
Podium would be better than a top 20. But I think, yeah, top 10 would be a really good ride. But looking at like my past results and realistically looking at what's possible, I would definitely be happy with the top 20. But I think top 10 is definitely the goal for this year. This week's tough because I'm back in Utah again, and looking outside, it's cloudy and probably might rain in the next couple of days. So may end up on the trainer trying to do some heat acclimation stuff and trying to figure out the core body temperature, kind of heat side of that. And I'm not going to be spending 6 hours on the trainer, I can tell you that right now. But yeah, I think I'll definitely have some more longer endurance rides in the coming weeks, and then with Gravel Locos less than 2 weeks away as well, down in Texas. I'll be heading out there probably middle of next week, and then we'll stay between, still figuring out that part, but between Texas and Kansas in those 2 weeks between Gravel Locos and Unbound, just to try and get some more heat acclimation, which you never really know. Like last year was really nice temperature wise. The year before that, it was, I don't even talk in Celsius anymore. It was like 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is mid 30s, I want to say 33, 35. And the humidity was like 70% humidity. So can be pretty nice. But I think trying to get a week or two with that sort of hot and humid conditions is going to be key to figuring out how to manage the hydration, and especially with Unbound only having two feed zones for 320k, I think, 200 miles.
330, I think.
330, yeah. So it's a long time to go with two stops, like every 100k. You get a food and water stop. So just managing that and trying to figure out I think bike setup, I'm pretty well dialed, but trying to figure out tires and tire pressure and whether I run inserts or not is going to be the big decision thing. I've kind of done it both ways over the past 2 years, and last year was good for punctures, and didn't have any punctures, but I think the wet conditions changed the situation on tire setup and durability. Like 2 years ago, there was almost everyone had 2 or 3 plus punctures over the course of the race. So just being prepared for that and knowing that it doesn't really matter what you run, you're going to have to be able to fix a flat.
Yeah, well, I actually raced Unbound last year, and I think I hit the jackpot a bit with the weather.
Yeah.
But I was actually in the same group as you. I think we had like Dylan Johnson and that as well.
Yeah.
And I actually punctured from your group. Well, I was sitting on the back trying to hang on for dear life. But it does feel like one of those races you have to be prepared that anything can happen, and you just have to be willing to just adapt and work through it as it comes.
Yeah. Yeah, from whether it's mechanical, physiological, like mental, all this, like you just have to be prepared to be on it all day and be able to overcome whatever the course throws at you, or you end up by yourself for 4 hours, or you get dropped. Like, I guess the past 2 years I've gotten dropped from the front group at mile 100. Like, we're 5 hours into the race and you blow up and you're like, well, I've got another 160 Ks to get to the finish, and you can spend that all by yourself. You can end up in no man's land for the next 6 or 7 hours, or you can jump in with a group and kind of figure it out. And I think being prepared for that to happen is a big part of that. And being able to eat shit food for 10 hours, pretty hard. Yeah, just eating sugar all day. Occasional. I think I had some pepperoni pizza last year, and some fairy bread at the second aid station. Had some fairy bread, which no one over here knows what that is, but sounded like before the race. I was like, I might want that. Might want that later on in the day. And I think being prepared for like having pickles or like chips, like something salty and something sweet, or something that you might usually eat for dinner that you might be craving after 6 or 7 hours of riding hard tempo on the bike. And that you kind of look forward to these different things that you plan to have at the second aid station. You're like, oh yeah, the Lay's or Smith's chip sandwich that you put together the night before. You're like, yep, that's gonna do it. The Pringles, pickles, like you just want to drink a whole jar of pickle juice. And that's what sounds good to you at the time. So it's kind of coming up with things that doesn't sound good to you right now, but then you might want it, and then having that all laid out on the table when you get to the aid station is, I think you don't end up eating much of it, but you have to have all these different options that you might be craving at that point in the day.
So this is going to be your third, Trekky, your first Unbound. What is your expectations? What are you hoping for? And like we've spoken about how epic can be and the challenges with nutrition and how the race plans out. What are you hoping for the race, mate?
I'm pretty I don't know if confidence is the right word, but I'm pretty excited about it. And just even seeing the course revealed the other day, I don't know, I just really like the look of it. I think it really does suit me. So I mean, I've been trying to do a lot of work at these long rides with the fueling and just really testing the body's ability to perform for that long, but also the intake that much food and how it kind of affects your performance over the 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. So I'm pretty excited for it. I think in terms of there's all the setup stuff, which is probably the stuff I'm the most kind of unsure about. I think when we spoke on episode 1 about the length of the race and stuff and being fit and kind of ready for that, I feel like that's probably, for me at least, a little bit easier piece of the puzzle than just the bike setup and the feeds for sure, and knowing what to carry, not carrying too much. I feel like, I mean, it's probably easy to look from outside and see like a lot of guys seem to have it so dialed, but I mean, perhaps there's actually not that much to it. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like on the right day, I can be right at the front of the race. And
any tips for bike setup, Ryan, for Trekky?
I feel like everyone brings their own setup and ideas to the race. And now that they banned said no aero bars, like that was kind of the big discussion point last year. Was kind of between some of the pro, there's like a group email between a bunch of the pro athletes, like we should have a gentleman's agreement to not run aero bars, and then some of the guys who agreed to not running aero bars showed up with aero bars because this guy didn't agree with it, and they were like, well, we don't want to give him an advantage. So I think that kind of it was nice for them to just say, let's just not do that. It's just like, everybody just don't run aero bars. But I mean, I've been running, I know Trekky's on Shimano as well. So I think, last year I ran a road. Did I run road setup? Yeah, I ran a 52.36 in the front with a 11.34 in the back with the GRX / old Ultegra RX. It was like this major mix of components. And the year before that, I ran a 46 tooth front chainring 1x with an 11.34, and that was not enough. That was not enough gear. So I ran the 1x the first year thinking like I'll be able to make it up the climbs, and that was true. I never had to get off and walk, but there were some times I was doing like 40 RPM up these climbs, just grinding. And even last year with the mid compact road setup, I think I'll probably go smaller this year, maybe down to a 50-34. So you have the 1-to-1 ratio on the back. But other than that, it's like just run the most durable tires you can get, like the 60 TPI tires that feel like you're going to rattle your teeth out. But if you're going to keep air in your tires for longer, then that's better. Yeah, I think that and the water, or like hydration part, especially if it's going to be a hot year. Like I remember 2 years ago, I froze the Camelback bladders completely solid, stuck them in the freezer the night before, and then got those at the aid stations, and they were melted and hot within an hour, like the water. So it was really nice when you throw it on, you're like, oh, that's the ice on the back feels really good, but then it doesn't last very long. Yeah, if it's going to be a hot year, I'd recommend freeze everything, because it's going to melt. It's going to melt really fast, and it'll be nice for that hour that you do get cold. Cold stuff is really good.
If you had to pick a podium, and by all means include yourself, top five.
Top five. Yeah. Man, I feel like I'm going to forget. Like there's probably like 10 people that could be up there. Keegan and Russell, Finsty, those two guys are like, Keegan's on kind of another level these days, especially with the long stuff. I think Jasper does pretty well. I mean, it's hard to rule out people that were strong last year, but then if it's hot, it's going to be a different scenario. Maybe you. I might put you up there, Trekky.
Thanks.
These are not in order. I'm just like five people.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of non-Grand Prix people.
Well
Ian Boswell. It's hard not to count out Boz as well. Yeah, he does well. But I haven't seen him much this year, so maybe he's secret training or he's being full time. Yeah,
that would have just slowed him
down. He could be doing full time dad as well. He could just be full time dadding, which is awesome as well. So I guess that was 5 or 6. So I think those are, Keegan and Russell I think are going to be pretty solid. Keegan can just ride tempo till he drops, which is probably never if he's only riding tempo. So I think for those long races it's tough to look past those guys. I think, man, like Cam Worth did it last year, and I thought he was going to be up there, but I think the roadies have a hard time if they have anything mechanical go wrong. Like, a puncture, maybe he didn't know how to change it. But
sounds like me. with my 9-minute change of putting a tube in.
Yeah. But also, like, Stettner, like Pete can always be there as well. So, yeah, trying to think who else is in. Now I'm just thinking lifetime, not outside of that. But yeah, I think there's a lot. There's a lot of guys that can do well there, especially with the amount of stuff that can go wrong as well.
For sure, and I think that's what makes the race exciting. Well, I'll definitely have both sets of fingers and toes crossed for both you and Trekky to see you guys hopefully in the top 5.
I'll go.
Really looking forward to see.
I'll put myself in that top 5 as well. Just
100%.
Just for the sake of it.
Good vibes.
Yeah.
No,
it's your list. You can do what you want.
Really appreciate.
It's my list.
Yeah.
I got the top 10 now. It's not top 5 anymore. I just gave you 10. So
nice. No, it's good. I really appreciate you jumping on and running us through your story and being a mountain bike pro turned gravel pro and now dual pro. Really excited to see how you go at Unbound and the rest of the Lifetime series. And really appreciate you jumping on and having a chat.
Yeah, maybe one of these days I'll actually become an Aussie and come back. But
well, we'll set up an Aussie race calendar towards the end of the year.
That sounds good. Yeah, you race in the summertime down there, right? So I can do both.
Yeah.
Year round.
That's it.
We don't discriminate.
Year round. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, not going to stop you. If you go up to Alice or Darwin, you can race whenever you want. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Not in the summer. Actually, that's not true.
Well, I think they're having gravel nationals here in Tasmania in July.
Yeah, that's right.
Which,
that doesn't sound great. It sounds cold and wet.
Tasmania in January is touch and go, I would say.
Yeah. But cool. Well, thanks for having me on, you guys. It was good to maybe my Australian accent came back a little bit. Been sounding sounding pretty.
Heard a bit of twang.
Pretty American being here for the last 10 years.
You got a bit of twang going.
Yeah.
Nah, awesome. Thanks a lot, mate. Really appreciate it. And Trekky, thanks for jumping on as co-host. And good luck for Unbound.
Pleasure. It's good fun. We'll see you soon, Ryan.
Sounds good. Thanks, fellas.